There you go.
Forward!
Hard work. Hard work. Hard work. Hard work. Hard work. There you go.
Forward!
Hard work. Hard work. Hard work. Hard work. Hard work. There you go.
Forward!
Hard work. Hard work. Hard work.
Fall in. Hey, what's good? What's good, family? What's going on? You know what it is. It's me, your boy Trey. My man Bishop should be tapping in a few minutes. We got Coach Miller, CMB, in the building today. What's going on, Coach?
Not much, man. Just hanging out, getting the day started.
Getting the stage day start. So, of course, before we get started, of course, with everyone's talk about all those naysayers, all those that say or believe firmly that their position that stands with the NBA Finals, uh, this just yesterday is the word. We're going to talk about CMB and what the ride has been like for Coach Miller starting out. So, of course, Coach Miller, it's been a long ride. A couple of opportunities at championships just outside of your grasp. Did earn a championship, a regular season championship, as well as a tournament championship. Two major tournaments, championship appearance in both, but yet didn't come away with anything. We'll talk about that. Get your ideal outtake on what it was like for this past weekend, especially for you being one of two coaches, or one of the two first coaches to play in a televised military basketball association game, and all that. But um, what has that ride been like for you as a coach, and then how have you been communicating with your players in the wake of everything?
I think it was just more, when you look at the season as a whole, I would say it's a successful season from where we started.
Agree.
But obviously disappointing. The two games that we lost both down at nationals and at the finals were games that we could have won.
Hmm.
By no means were we out of either of those games. We just, in the end, we didn't close them out.
Hmm.
Um, or we made a run too late and couldn't get back in it. Both those teams are very good teams. Luke, for seasons that I've been a part of the NBA, has always been one of the top teams. Um, JBLE, they very good team. They're always ranked high. That was my first time actually playing them, and
Hmm.
they played really well. I mean, they didn't do anything to just give away the games to us. Some of the other teams that we played, if we got up on them, they would just kind of lay down and fold. And both those teams, they just keep coming. So, hats off to both those teams. I think we were one of the top teams in the league, and both teams were better that day than us.
Hmm. Okay. So when you look at it, there's been conversation in reference to uh dynasties. Like this is your first year coaching, so we as I late yesterday, I thought about the conversation which I had with some of the NBA brass, as well as Coach Paris, of course, who you faced off against in the NBA championship, and the question come up in reference to dynasty. Now, of course, from an aspect of you being your first year coaching, it may be a little presumptuous to say, okay, is CMB, that's the question, is CMB a dynasty uh, program? Let's say dynasty program. Well, I guess you could say dynasty program. Maybe not so much dynasty team, or you're saying, or so. First thing I ask is, what is your definition of a dynasty?
I mean, you got to win. I mean, you got to win the big ones to be considered a dynasty. You got to do it consistently over, 3, 4, or 5 seasons. You can't just have one good season or two good seasons and consider yourself a dynasty. And if you're not winning, then it's really not even a conversation.
Mhm. And so, with that idea, that what would you say does CMB lie as far as a dynasty program, dynasty team, or is it still some time to work? Because of course, it's
I
been. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're a really good team. I think we
Hmm.
have a really good program that, if service members are in Colorado and want to participate in the NBA and the regular season. I think we're a program that teams are going to want to play for, or players are going to want to play for now. I definitely don't think we're a dynasty, until this season. CMB hadn't won anything. I think I joke with, Coach Myers that the only thing we had won before this was a YMCA league. Like, so we had never taken home any hardware anywhere. We did take up last season, down at the Mauricio Gray, we were runner up to Camp Pendleton. So we took that, but nobody, to be considered a dynasty, you can't keep coming in second, So, this year, we won the regular season. We won the conference tournament. We went down to nationals. We beat a really good team in Herbert. We beat another really good team in Fort Bragg, which were, I think, steps in the right direction. And then obviously we ran into JBLE, and so we didn't close that one out. Then we went to nationals. We started the finals. We went to the finals. We started off really strong in the finals. We went in by, I think, an average of like 40 points a game. In pool play in our first quarterfinal game. Then our semifinal game, we ran into Fort Moore. We jumped out up to, we were up 20 on them at halftime. So we started really strong, and we, even that game, credit to Coach Ace, their pressing team kind of wore us down, but then they were dropping back into a zone instead of staying man. But again, like even that game, we found a way to pull it out and win. And, Luke did the same thing throughout the tournament, and they had a really tough game against Fort Riley, and I think that's the sign of a good team, is being able to win those close ones, and we did that. I don't think anybody thought when they took the lead on us in the last minute in the Fort Moore game that we were going to win that game.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of teams that really didn't pay attention to CMB, and we kind of got a lot of hate from people. And I think this season, people will lie to you and tell you that they want to be in our bracket and play us, but nobody wants that. Everybody knows we're not.
They're not about that life.
Yeah, everybody knows we're not an easy out. I'm looking at teams that are like, oh, we want to be in your bracket. Come on, man. You beat a team by 5 in overtime that was playing with 4 players, and we blew that same team out by 50. You're not ready for us. So we're not a dynasty team. We're still building. We could be really good still. But again, we have to win.
And so, but if for you to say, like you said, coming in second, of course, obviously we understand coming in second isn't really thing. But for this year, at minimum, this year, you have been consistent in winning. You haven't won. You haven't closed it out as a team, as you were saying, but y'all have been consistent in winning. Is that not something to build on, to hang your hat on?
It is something to build on, for sure. It's definitely something to build on. I think, in the NBA season, and even if you include nationals, I mean, we lost 4 games all season, and that includes nationals. So if it's just the NBA season, we lost 3 games. And so that makes us a really good team, but that doesn't make us a dynasty team. Okay. I think we have the foundation for that. We have guys that, if there's, if we keep building as a program, that we're gonna get to that point is the plan. But like Luke has been doing this for,
4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years. Coach Paris, and Coach Paris has a really good program where guys come in, guys go out. I think his quote was, we don't build teams, we build players. And that's what he's done. He's taken guys and he's developed them. There's, and he's had different types of lineups. He went from 2 all Air Force, all Armed Forces players to none, still winning. So every coach that I've coached against or I've seen, I study and I try to take some stuff from, and there's things that we'll add, and we're already really good, but we can be better. And I think that should be very scary for other people looking in.
Okay. So continuing on, give me your idea of what the weekend was like last weekend, in your opinion, from production. Then we'll start to go in to get into the game, which I think something which I've seen specifically a couple of your players wanted to see certain aspects. I've seen things in reference to maybe something going a little wonky with the score. But before we get to that, what was it like, the atmosphere like, in your opinion?
Well, first, the facilities were great. I think that's the one thing the NBA has kind of always done, is we've always played at really good facilities. Now, sometimes we get a little blindside, you know, they say Atlanta, and then we're out in an hour and a half from Atlanta. But the facility is still really nice.
Yes.
But we're not kind of where we thought we were going to be.
Okay.
But, you know, it's still a really good facility. The courts are good. You know, the staff at the facilities are good. So it's always, you know, we're playing in quality gyms. You know, it's not just some thrown together thing. And I think that started off the weekend good, or, you know, the Friday morning with the opening ceremony and everything. And then, you know, getting into the first games. I think it was hard for some teams to get, you know, players and teams to Wichita to play a Friday morning game, even though it was a long weekend for them.
Yes.
So, I mean, that was a little tough. I think that would be something, you know, to look at, just, you know, but I get the time constraints and everything. So that was probably the one downside I heard a lot of complaints about, was just starting on a Friday morning, you know, and some people probably didn't get off till late Thursday potentially, and trying to get to Wichita. And Wichita is not the easiest place to travel to. You know, it's not a central airport. It's not, you know, unless you're Fort Riley. You know, Fort Riley, they jet it right on down there. So, but outside of that, I think that would be the only thing. Other than that, I mean, the atmosphere, you know, a lot of teams in participation. I think it started off as a good tournament. I think early on in some of those games, you got to see what some teams were going to do. And the good thing was all the courts were right there for pool play. So it was like, if your game finished up, or, you know, you could jump over and see a team you might be playing, or, you know, you could send your assistant over to scout that other team real quick. And that, I think that's a huge benefit for all the teams there. So.
And so, of course, and that was the next question I was about to ask, because I know I heard Jason talk about it a little bit. Coach Parrish talked about it a little bit, whether you're just going to be a fan, or if you're going, like you say, for the purposes of going to scout or take a look at some teams. You ain't have to leave the gym and leave and go out anywhere else. It was basically right there, which of course added to the mystique of the whole thing, and be able to go and cheer on a couple of teams. Maybe hopefully watch somebody eliminate someone whom you didn't care to play against, or whatever case like that. So, who was in your pool?
So our first game, we had Shepherd. So we had Shepherd, Camp Pendleton, and Tinker were the other three. Okay. Yeah, and so we ended up winning, and then Pendleton won. So we played Camp Pendleton for our second game. Okay. Obviously, Pendleton was missing Chris Harris, so that affected, you know, their team quite a bit. He's kind of their glue guy, their older, you know, their veteran guy, NBA Player of the Year. So it's like, not having a player like him, you know, definitely hurts them. And we all show up and play with who we have, you know. And Pendleton for us was, I think, more of a mental thing. Like, we'd lost to Pendleton in other tournaments. They'd been more physical than us. So for us to be able to go in there and beat them, you know, was kind of a mental hurdle for us, you know, not necessarily a talent hurdle, but more mental for us. And so at every point I kept looking and thinking, like, man, they're going to make a run. They're going to make a run, you know, and luckily we played solid defense and their run never came. So that was a good win for us, I think, which kind of then put us into the quarterfinals, just kind of waiting around till Saturday night to play, which is tough. I think that's kind of what hurt us as Nationals too, is we played 2 games Friday and then sat around till I think 2000 on Saturday night to play JBLE, you know. So the guys, you know, and that was kind of a growing thing for me too as a first year coach. Like I probably should have got them in the gym, got them up and down. Instead, I tried to go the route of like, let me have them rest, stay off their feet. And so then down here, I said, nah, we're going to get in. And I think we got in and we actually went up, you know, we're up in it, just scrimming each other, got some shots, did some shooting drills just to get, you know, break a sweat and get guys going. And then, so then that night we played Davis Montes actually. And, you know, they were shorthanded too. They definitely weren't the same team that I saw they had in Vegas. And so we ended up beating them, you know, pretty good as well. And so we were still rolling, you know, and it looked, you know, we were waiting for Sunday morning in the Final Four.
Okay, so as we take a quick pause on the NBA action, or as I would say, the resiliency in action. Let's talk about these games from last night. First and foremost, who you got in the series, the NBA series?
I'm in Denver. You know, the Nuggets been my team. I had
Okay.
said it last time I was on that,
Hmm.
it's going to be tough for any team to beat them. I really didn't think we'd be playing Miami, but I mean, I think off last night's game, Miami's just too small.
Hmm.
Aaron Gordon just bullied Vincent. I think Miami may have found something when they dropped back to that zone, in the
Hmm.
fourth quarter. But honestly, they're just too small. And the other scary part is like they said, like Denver, they didn't even shoot the ball great. They didn't play, their normal offensive game. And you could say maybe that was to Miami's defense, but I think that was just, they've been off 9 days.
Hmm.
Um,
As
and
when
Denver's
you
defense showed us a lot better than what I think people thought because Jimmy Butler had 13 points.
Yes, when you look at it, like you say, Bam Adebayo, 26 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists. Uh, which you would, I mean, it's not like we know Bam and Jimmy has been their 1-2 punch, but like you said, Jimmy Butler, 13 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, one turnover. Gabe Vincent, who has been, of course, a spotlight for them, 19 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 block, 11 points from Kyle Lowry, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Um, Additionally, Duncan Robinson 3 points, which was a little off. Haywood Highsmith contribute 18 points, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, 11 points. Oh, like I just said, 11 points from Kyle Lowry, but no points from anyone else really. 3 points from Caleb Martin as he was locked down. Jokic, Nikola Jokic, nothing for in his time frame. Then you come out as we stated, 8-man rotation for Denver. Real slick. 27 points from Nikola Jokic, yet another triple double with 10 rebounds, 14 assists, 1 steal, 1 block from the big man. 26 points from Jamal Murray, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, 6 rebounds, 1 steal. Um, Bruce Brown continued to do his damage, 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 7 points from Kentavious Caldwell Point, 4 points from Jeff Green. Uh, Michael Porter Jr., 14 points, 12 rebounds, 1 assist. Aaron Gordon, 16 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist. Basic and Braun basically just contributed one rebound, 1 assist. As you stated, I know Jimmy Butler talked about it when he was on doing his after post game interview that they didn't attack the rim. Um, Shooting, not drawing any fouls, 2 free throws the whole game, which isn't indicative of knowing about a game. Actually, when you look at NBA games, but this wasn't based on the fact that they didn't get the calls, they didn't attack the rim. Uh, Max Strus 0 for 3, 0 for 10 from 3 point. A lot of that going on. Uh, do you think any of that you're there, you're in it all the time? Could that any of that have to do with the fact that it's in the altitude of Denver that also causes fatigue, or like
Dog.
you said, was it just a bad night?
I think it was at the end of the game they got fatigued, maybe, but I think Jimmy and them said that they felt good, the
He
whole
did.
time. So, I mean, I think, like Struess was just missing open jumpers to start the game. I think he started 0 for 4, 0 for 5. So it's like you can't really say fatigue's the problem at the beginning of the game,
Hmm.
So I don't think fatigue was necessarily the biggest factor for them. I think it was just that they're probably tired. I mean, they played a long series against Boston, much longer than they
Should
were
have been.
thinking they were going to. So I
Hmm.
think fatigue and then jumping on a plane from there, coming to Denver, being off one day and then into the finals is tough.
So, how much does the altitude really play for play? I mean, you see it on a smaller scale. Is it that much of a problem for teams that don't usually frequent that area?
Absolutely. It's definitely a problem. I think most teams, when they get going, they get here, they play their first game condition than most people. So,
Hmm.
but it plays a factor here. I mean, it's definitely a thing. I mean, even when I just have friends come from out of town and we go play, they're grabbing their side, feeling like their lungs are burning. So, I mean, it's definitely a real factor, And so, I mean, and it's the same when you play here all the time and you go down to a lower elevation. I mean, you feel like you can breathe and you can play a lot longer. And so,
Hmm.
it's definitely a real thing that's going to affect them. But I'm guessing It'll be a lot better for game 2, but I think there's just too many factors for them on why they're not going to win this series.
Understandable. So, going flipping back over, we come back to NBA in a second. Getting back over and falling back into it. So, like you was talking about in your particular series, after taking care of Davis Monson, going into getting in later into the game, what was the outlook of when you knew you had Fort Moore that was going to be your opponent during the
Um,
semifinal game?
I mean, honestly, I wasn't worried about Fort Moore, honestly. Honestly, what we did to them in the first half is what I expected to do to them the whole game.
Okay.
I just didn't think they had enough. They definitely in the second half, proved that wrong. But I honestly, and when the pools came out, I was like, if Pendleton comes with a full team, they're going to be our biggest obstacle.
Okay.
We weren't worried about Fort Moore. We've played them a lot. Or not a lot, but we've played them over this, my seasons
Oh,
here.
yes.
And we've never lost to them, at least not since I've been a part of this program. And so, I mean, I just expected, it was going to go the same way. I think what I do realize in that game is, we didn't have Andre Nichols, who was, he's one of our better ball handlers. And I think what hurt us is our top 3 ball handlers all fouled out that game.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that happened, we had, 2 big men in the game, and a tweener and 2 guards, but, they weren't, our top ball handlers. And so that kind of hurt us, but I mean, they definitely could have got us. Like I said, we hit a big shot. I'm guessing they didn't execute the way that they wanted to down the stretch, by giving that 3 up. And so, hats off to them. They played a great game. But I honestly thought what we did to them in the first half, we were going to do to them in the second half. And that's kind of what we were expecting. I expected them to beat them by 30.
By 30?
Well, look, I mean, we've been beating everybody that whole tournament, and so,
Yeah.
we won a game by 50 that we were up almost 60, 70 in. We were up on Pendleton by 35 at one point. We were up, beat Davis Monthus by 50. I mean, and when you look at Fort Moore, they had some tough games with some other teams, like not tough, but where they were, they didn't necessarily blow people out. It was a 10, 15-point game, teams made runs with them. And so, I mean, I don't know if fatigue started factoring into it because we only went with 8. But realistically, I mean, I think we expected to beat them by 20, 30 points. And that's how it was going, and they, they were pressing in the first half as well. And we were tearing up. I think the difference was they pressed and then they started dropping back into that 3-2 to not let us shoot, and we really, the press didn't really force turnovers, so to say. But Fort Moore was hustling. I think, maybe that second half after the press did start to wear us down a little and we weren't boxing out and rebounding as well as we should. I mean, but you look at how many fouls they got called, in the second half to foul out 3 of my top ball handlers, especially when they're the pressing team. That's a little ironic to me, but at the end of the day, we were able to get that win and, move on.
And then moving on, getting into the finals, just like I ask everybody else, Coach Daniels, of course, Daniel, what was that like knowing that this was going to be the televised game? What was it like playing in the arena, playing on the Wichita Shockers court? Saying a little different when the mystique and everything. What was that like for you as well as your players, and how did you control that?
I think definitely was a different environment as far as, walking into the arena, even warm-ups, just, the backdrop for the hoop. Everything was a lot different. I think the other thing that kind of, not hurt us, but threw us off was, they have the media timeouts, which we did at Nationals, but I mean, some of these media timeouts were 2.5 minutes. Like, you're like, dang, I ain't got, like, we're so used to a ball goes out of bounds, getting it and going, but all of a sudden now there's a media timeout that you really didn't plan for. And so I think that kind of hurt, our rhythm a little bit, and is definitely something, going forward we would have to adjust to. But I mean, you only play one of those type of games. And so that kind of is crazy, that we we're able to play in that game. That was the goal, was to, know that we were going to be in that game. The other
Uh-huh.
goal was obviously to win it, but it was definitely a good experience. Something, I had friends, family, people watching, the guys, players had friends and families there watching. So it was definitely a very cool experience. Um, Something, hopefully happens again. And, the goal would be right back there and just have a different outcome next time.
Okay. Uh, what was it? What was the players? What was the player saying? And was it ever the point in which you felt like you had to calm them down? Like the moment was they were allowing the moment and the mystique and everything, like you was just saying, to get to them, or was they even killed the whole time and you just had to business as usual?
I mean, I think it was just a normal game once we got going. I think the guys were fine. I think, you know, there's some things that, we were trying to stress to them. AJ was drawing, two and three defenders, and we need to kick. We we should have kept playing through the post more. Everett was, dominating down there, and we should have kept playing through that. So I think, the flow of the game, guys were, you know, we rushed some things. There were some fast breaks that, we didn't handle the ball correctly. They should have been easy layups, and we bobbled it, or we threw an errant pass, or stuff like that. I mean, those things happen in other games as well, but when it's on that stage, you want to play, and especially against a team as good as Luke, you got to execute that types of things, and we didn't. We missed some easy layups. We missed handling some passes. Maybe took some shots too early in the shot clock, things of that nature.
Mm. So as I was watching the game, it was a point because I missed the first half, and so I came into watching the game like in the third, or because it was actually pretty close at the third. Then all of a sudden, it was a blow up. What exactly happened in that moment for you,
I,
where it was a huge disparity in what the clock was it y'all just that was at the point where you just
uh,
started to take over? What was your point of view in that?
well, I've heard this. I've heard that it was a blow up, but I guess I'm confused on that because we were down four going into the fourth.
Hmm.
But so what happened was when the third quarter started, we were up 43-40 coming out of halftime.
Okay.
They came out, I think Sutton hit a three to tie the game.
Hmm.
If you watch the film, I've rewatched it a couple times. We come down, we score, E gets a layup. We should be up 45-43. They put those points over on Luke's side. So immediately I say something to the ref. They like, we're going to fix that at the media time. So I'm thinking, okay, they've seen it. We go down, we get a stop, we come down, we hit a three. So at this point, we should be up 48-43.
Hmm.
Then we come down, we foul, but they put those points on Luke's side too.
Hmm.
And so to see this, you kind of got to look at there's a there's scoreboards in the corners of the arena there that you can see it at. And so then even at one point on the live stream, the camera zooms on me, and I'm like, yo, we should have 48.
Hmm.
And the refs, I'm saying something to the refs like, oh, we're gonna fix it during the media timeout. So I'm thinking the whole time, I'm thinking they realize this. We
That
end
they're
up
keeping
fouling. We end up
officially they're
fouling.
keeping the right
Right,
score.
right. We end up fouling Luke. So they go to the free throw. They split. Right now it should be 48-44. Then we come down. We get another layup. We should be up 50-44. But if you look, that score never happens. Um, so they do finally get to the media timeout. They go over to fix it. We should be up 50-44, and they make the score 50-46 or something. 50-48, 50-46. I think they basically it's the first layup we scored, they give us credit for it and they give Luke credit for it. So now
Uh,
instead of us being up six, we're up four.
mhm.
Um, which okay, like and the downside of that is like while we're going, players, you want your players to just play.
Yeah, but they're paying
Um,
attention to the score.
they're worrying about the score. I'm yelling at them to just play basketball. We'll get it fixed. The guys on the bench are yelling about the score. I'm asking the refs, and the refs are, we're going to fix it at the meantime. So, for me, that's a correct mistake in the game, right?
Mhm.
So Jason's on here commenting how great his officials were. Like, I mean, y'all messed the score up the first start of the third quarter. Score was wrong the whole time. So when we go down four, we're down four going into the fourth, right? Really, we're down two.
Mhm.
Now you go through the fourth quarter, there's times when we cut the lead to 1 point, right? And in my head, I'm thinking like, as a coach and as a player, sometimes when you battle back or the game's close and you finally can take the lead, that's a boost there for you. So when there was times when they said we were down one in the fourth, we're really up one.
Mm.
Now, and even with all that, now we get down to 2.5 minutes in the game. Boyd hits a three. That put him up on the scoreboard in the arena. That put him up 77-69.
Mm-hmm.
2.5 minutes to go in the game. Really, it should have been 75-69. So the difference there is it's a 2-possession game versus a 3-possession game. Basically, when he hit that three, that was a big shot on him.
Correct.
So again, people are saying, no, they're walking away with it. I'm looking at it like it's a 6-point game, 2.5 minutes left in the game.
2-point possession.
I'm not really sure where that's a blow. In any game I played, I don't know where that's a blowout, especially with a shot clock. So what happened, though, is come down. We didn't execute. We didn't score. Then we scored 4 points the rest of the game. So regardless of all that, and some of that is, the subs I felt like I had to make. I took and then one of our bigs fouled out. So then I was like, all right, we got to speed the game up. We got to get more possessions. And so when you look at it, a 2-possession versus a 3-possession game, we come down, we don't score. At that point, it's like we started fouling. So Luke, on their scorecard, won it by 12. They really won by 10. Some of that's because we fouled. So realistically, most of that game was played within, 4 to 6 points either way. And so when people say it's a blowout, I'm like, a blowout to me is what we were doing to teams earlier in the tournament.
Correct.
So I don't think if you tell any coach, like, look, you're up 6 with 2.5 minutes to go, 2:20 to go in the game on a shot clock, that they're going to think like that game's over.
Okay.
I mean, we were down 3 with 18 seconds left against Fort Moore. I mean, we won that game by 7, 8 points in overtime. So
Right.
I don't think any coach is going to be like, that's a blowout,
So I guess for me looking at it, because I didn't catch or notice the deficit in the score for the most part until when when I messaged you and you put it up, and then I noticed like yesterday some of the people were asking questions and stuff like that, which let me know okay there was something that went on. So when I say the fell apart, I was just looking at it from an aspect of where y'all were, where it was a close game. When I was looking at it, I was like, oh, they're jostling back and forth. To now, it looked like it was, I'm not going to say insurmountable, but it looked like when you look at now, you're playing against the clock and going forth, and it was getting away where you got 7 points. But again, as you stated, it could be that can play on the psyche of a coach and a player when you're thinking yourself, like,
and if we're 4 or 5 minutes in the game, instead of being down 1, we're up 1. There's times we're running breaks that, playing against Luke, like we're there, instead of pulling that out and running a set and using 20, 25, 30 seconds of a shot clock, we went and it was a 3-on-2. Maybe we pull that out, maybe they don't. You don't know, because we didn't have the right score for the whole second half. So when you come on and you compliment your referees, and I heard this happen in pool play to some other teams. Fort Campbell had this issue. Other people had this issue. I'm confused because this is a nationally televised game, and you had, younger kids running the table, and then you're supposed to have these experienced refs that when it happened, even if I'm playing, coaching, whatever, if I'm a spectator and I see a team scores and I'm like, that was CMB, but Luke got the points on the board, I'm going to be like, something not right here, and this is a nationally televised game. You think that we should get that right. And so I think if we're going to invest to have games on TV and on this stage, then we should probably invest in people that actually are experienced in running the clock and table, not just some people that are there as volunteers, or maybe they were getting paid. I don't know. I think they did the best they could. I don't think that it was intentional. I don't think that we were robbed, by no means. I think Luke played a great game and they beat us. If we play the way we've been playing earlier in the tournament, I don't know if that's even a game, But again, like, hats off to them. They kept their composure. They had calls that went against them. We had calls that went against us. Do I agree with everything? No. There was a point where they gave Coach Paris, they gave him a warning for yelling how terrible the refs and calls were. but then my big man waves the ref off, and we get a
Oh yeah,
technical.
he got
So,
teed up.
for me, it's like, where's the consistency here? Like, and I get it. Maybe on TV you don't hear what he says and stuff, but on TV you can obviously see hand gestures and stuff. But
Mhm.
I mean, as an officiating crew or a team, all you ask for is consistency, and that to me is not consistent. Not getting your score right's not a good look on them. So we could post pictures of them. We can talk about how great they were, and in reality, they were subpar. Um, and I can say that because I can't get fined. But you know
As you
that
talking about this, I'm still thinking about something like,
right,
okay,
right. But what I do want to make clear is that's not why we lost the game.
correct,
Okay,
okay,
like,
got you.
hats off to Luke, their players. The guys that we said could hurt us, they hurt us. Basically going into it, we said they have Ortega, their shooter. They have Sutton. He's an undersized big man, but he's going to footwork you to death in there. And then they have Morales, who is their hustle player. May have one of the ugliest jump shots I've ever seen, but he's their hustle player. He gets to all the loose balls. He finishes around the rim, and he did everything for them. So those three guys, we knew we had to contain, and we didn't. They all had great games. Um, and so even at the end of the day, like, we had a chance to win the game. We had opportunities. Like I said, 2.5 minutes before he hit that three. They put him up 8. It was really 6. There's no even being up 6. That's a good spot to be in. I would take that if Coach Paris wanted to switch that. I would take that and play it with a 6-point lead going down the last 2.5 minutes.
Hmm.
And we didn't execute. And credit to them, they hit free throws down the stretch as well. So
Hmm.
um, that's not why we lost, but it's definitely something that I think that if you're going to broadcast a game of that magnitude, you should probably get it right, especially the score. So,
So, from an aspect of a person that could keep score, I mean, of course, it's not as huge as this, but keeping score like during intramurals, it would sometimes, if depending on what the situation is, I got to keep the clock, I got to keep the score. But in state for me is the book. What's in the book is always what is considered to be the gospel.
hmm
And so, irregardless, regardless, I'm sorry, regardless of the situation, like I know that part where you like, especially from the aspect of a coach where you're getting bombarded with the questions, people in the stands is like, hey, wrong
people,
score. You got your players that's like, coach, you know what I'm saying? You got the players like, you're trying to coach, you're trying to keep the, you know what I'm saying, you're tracking, unless you got someone on the bench that's tracking the score, which when in the games in which keeping and during which when I played against my had teams that played against Coach Cal, in which Coach Cal would constantly be like, "Oh, what's up?" You know what I'm saying? I got the score because he was always the person keeping the book, in which I'm looking at it like, I'm keeping the book too. You know what I'm saying? No different. And my book is kept from the actions of the officials. If they don't tell me it's a 2 or a 3, then I don't put a 2 or a 3, and
mm,
so on and so forth. So I can completely understand. I can understand both parts of the situation, but I can definitely understand what you're saying is like you feel like that is something that is rather should be minute, especially on the a broadcasted game, in which you're looking at. You got people looking across the world that if they're keeping the score, they probably at home kicking over tables and wondering, especially like what is going on with the score. And like I said, very it can be detrimental to you as a coach, where like you said, what you could have did differently as opposed to what you did, because you're in your and then fighting your mind like this should be a 2 point game or 1 point game. This should be this, and looking
right.
at what could have been. So uh definitely different. So you talk about or Ortega, which everyone keeps on giving the praise to talk about where he was to where he is. We talk about this all the time, usually when we talk about games, to where you let certain people. Of course, Luke didn't have those certain people, but they were still in the position. Were you actually really prepared for Ortega, and was it based on what you knew that he did, or what he did that in that tournament?
I mean, no, I knew what he did. We knew he was a shooter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some plays where I'm yelling at them, close the gap on him,
Mm-hmm.
take his space away. I mean, and whether it was fatigue or what, I mean, let's say I wasn't seeing, he wasn't blowing by people off the dribble,
Mm-hmm.
but if you gave him space, he was letting it go off the screens, and, they ran, set for him. They would run um, pick screens for him that, if he got some space, he was letting it go. Um, Do I think that we had the players to kind of counteract that? Of course, I think we did, but we, you know, we had some players that we weren't driving and kicking. Some guys didn't get in rhythm. One of our probably our best shooter, Mike Argyle, he didn't score the whole game. The whole time I'm telling him you got to be aggressive. You got to look to score. You got to look to be aggressive and put some foul trouble in there. And like I heard him saying, he's back and forth to the bench. Well, it wasn't fatigue. I can tell you, Mike, for being damn near 40 years old, is in great shape.
Uh-huh.
But foul trouble, you can't. If he's got three fouls, like in the first half, or I gotta pull him. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
it's like you can't. It's hard to get a rhythm when you're in and out, and there's foul troubles, and so again, there's always going to be calls that you agree with, you don't agree with, the other coach agrees with, don't agree with. But there was one right in front of their bench. The Luke player rolled his ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Mike's just standing there, and he threw it out of bounds. One ref calls it our ball. The other ref comes from the other side of the court and says it's a block. And it's like those are calls that you have to live with. You may not necessarily agree with, but when he picks up that foul, it's like now I got to pull him out.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of trying to get him in there to get in a rhythm. And so um, there's things of that nature that happen throughout the course of a season, a game, all that, and you gotta play. We gotta stay aggressive regardless of what your foul situation is. At least on the offensive end, is where we needed him. So.
Mm. So when you look at it for you as of course your first year as a head coach, and now that the season's I guess you could say somewhat over, but of course in which we're gonna get in a little bit. I know CMB is playing in the Battle of the Crest, and then of course you still have potentially the All Star game. Where would you say you was? What's your feeling as your first year head coaching?
I think the biggest thing for us was just changing the culture with CMB.
Okay.
As far as players, commitment, player mentality, players buying into what we were doing. I think we were a lot more physical team this year. I don't think we let as many of the little things kind of bother us. And I think we had a collective, group of guys that were consistent throughout the whole year. I just this last tournament, one of our knockdown shooters, had tore his Achilles at conference, so we lost him. Then Andre Nichols couldn't make it because of, work and family obligations. And then Cole Lutz couldn't make it. And then Zach couldn't make it. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the timing of that was, it sucks, but it's life, it's life and it's the military and it's their obligations, which is more important than basketball. And I think with what we had, the eight guys we had, I think we had enough to win it. Um, but I definitely think that having those guys, you know, first, even when you're blowing a team out, it's great to pull your starters and put, you know, your other guys in and let, to spread out your, the minutes on the guys' legs, and that didn't happen. So
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't do that. But I think overall, I think we had a really good season. I think I learned a lot. I think, the guys bought into what I wanted to do. And I think we're going to be very tough going forward. I think these old guys on here that have been coaches for a little longer forget that it wasn't long ago that I was giving their team 20, 30 points. Um, I saw, Akeem Echols kind of backtracked on some of his statements about his coach beating me one-on-one, that he don't really count as a
I'm
coach, he a
talking about
player still.
Todd.
Yeah, so I mean, and the thing I also learned about coaching, like Wayne, Paris, Coach Ace, Coach Al, Ty, the coaching side. When you're a player, you really don't realize how much the coaches probably talk, and
Mm-hmm.
even the brotherhood between just the coaches, because it is a whole different challenge, and I have a lot of respect for the guys that have been doing this a long time. After seeing everything, huge shout out to my assistant coach, man, Coach Rob. If it wasn't for him, man, we probably would have never had hotels to sleep in. We probably travel arrangements. The coaches stay up late. They arrange all this. The impromptu meetings that the commissioners want to call that you got to be in, and just all that stuff. And the guys that organize. I know Coach Dave out in Pendleton, Coach Wayne, Timo, all those guys that Mike Rich send down for nationals, all the tournaments that they organize and stuff like that, that these players get to take part in. When I was playing,
I didn't really realize all the coordination that went into it. All I had to worry about was just getting myself there, and showing up, being ready to play. But outside of that, as a coach, you're worrying about, am I going to have enough guys traveling? Can I get 12 guys there? Can I get 8 guys there? Can I get 6? Am I going to have to go get my jersey back on? And so it's like a lot of respect I learned. I definitely gained for coaches this year, or anybody that's really, coaching a team, a program, running a tournament. Um, I think that was kind of my biggest takeaway from coaching this year. It's hard to get grown men to kind of buy in and play the way you think they should, especially when they've been playing. Some of these guys have been playing the way they've been playing for 30, 35 years. I think Tinker's got a guy that's been playing that way for 60 years. I don't know. And so, like, to get these guys to play the way you want them to can be challenging and frustrating. And so it's just learning. I got Mike who's 40. I got Clint who's 21, 19 years old. You got guys, all spectrums there, different parts of their military career, different experiences in life. And getting to that is tough, just trying to relate to all those different players. And so I think we had a very good season. I don't think we have anything to hang our heads over. A couple losses, and I think we'll learn from those, and we will be better. And I think that's scary for a lot of people to hear, is that we're going to be a lot better next year. And so we'll see. Hopefully we can close it out next year. But yeah, we're looking forward to trying to get down to Orlando. Go ahead and see. That's an open tournament where teams are going to come more stacked to how they were at nationals. Probably a little better. So we're going to go down there and we're going to see what we can do. Even if it's just to be down there and close out the season. The funny thing is, like, all these tournaments we've been going, and we haven't even. We go out, I'm making the guys get in bed, go to bed, get off, recover. So I think the one down in Orlando for us would be more of a,
Relaxed
nobody,
environment.
yeah, we're not going down to lose, but we're also not going to go down there and be like, we're going to go down to have a good time as well, kind of close out our season and, just do that little team bonding and kind of just calling into our season doing that.
Mm. Waves at the streets. So, of course, like you said, going down there, is CMB going to be a pure team, or have you looked at potentially picking up a couple of people since it's an open? What's the ideal?
I think we're pretty pure. Even at nationals, we had 2 guys, but one of them, he had just left from Colorado. Abe, and I don't think anybody knew who he was anyway. And so I think we'll try to get Abe back in the fold. He meshed with us really well. I would say, he was probably one of the best bigs at that nationals tournament. He definitely surprised a lot of people. He surprised me. I mean, when I first saw him, I was like, yeah, we'll see. And then warm-ups came, and he was dunking everything, cocking it back between his legs, 3-6. I was like, all right, yeah,
Yeah, we might have
definitely, yeah, he could play. And so we'll try to get some guys like that in the fold. I know AJ's PCS in over to Boston, so we won't have him. A couple other guys that are now they're gonna be here, stationed in Colorado Springs, that are coming in. If they're looking to play for CMB, it's kind of probably a good tournament. If there's somewhere else that we could just get them, see what they have to play and offer the team, and instead of having to wait for tryouts, after the summer. So we'll see. We haven't really even discussed it much, honestly. We just kind of we're focused on nationals and then the finals, and so we'll look at what rosters, what guys are available. Again, like, I think CMB is a fun team to run with and play with. We can play slow, we can play fast. So if guys don't have a team and they're looking, message me and we'll see what we can do. Oh,
So,
and
go
and
ahead.
and you, and the last biggest thing, is I cover everybody's expenses. You know what I'm saying? We don't,
Okay.
so if you're traveling with me, you're gonna travel a little different. So, keep that in mind, guys.
That sounds like some Suge Knight type death row. You know
Yeah, you know
what
what
I'm
I'm
saying?
saying?
You don't want your culture, your all on your video, all your TikToks. You don't want to saying come run with CMB. That's what that sounds
Right,
like.
right,
So,
right.
a matter of a question, because I'm looking at Ty Shaw, of course, big up in you, you and Rob for the most part. Look at Hendrick, bigging up you and Perk with his coach of the year. So when you look at that, and you talking about that, when you look at Carson, CMB, Uh, I guess it's not a problem currently right now because Carson doesn't play in the NBA and they kind of independent for the most part. So, do you feel a certain type of way when for the most part, I can say you're your piffling players that could potentially be on Carson, playing for Carson's team, or does it make a difference in the aspect, especially with, let's say, maybe Ty Shaw and Carson become an NBA team this following year, and you have players that could have played with Carson that are now playing with CMB, which is splitting the fold. Is that does that make any difference, or has that been any talking maybe
Uh,
meshed together?
I mean, we've had talks.
Okay.
I think the Fort Carson, you have Peterson out here,
Mm-hmm.
teams that could be in the NBA. And honestly, I think if you see one of those teams come into the NBA, then I don't think you'll see a CMB anymore. I think, the NBA was kind of one of their founding things, you have to claim an installation. Clearly, we don't claim an installation. And I don't claim an installation because we don't get NWR sport.
Correct.
I pay for our practice facilities. We don't practice on base. We don't, none of that. And my biggest thing is just offering military members here in Colorado Springs
Mm-hmm.
and only Colorado Springs an opportunity to play basketball, whether, or CMB goes independent. That's another option. If we can't participate in the NBA because of this, this bylaw, we'll say. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now we hope that the goal is to remain there. I think a lot of the guys and myself, we've been pretty big supporters of the NBA. Now, have I always seen eye to eye with everybody in the NBA? No. Am I more vocal about some of it? Potentially. But I think if you do see Peterson or Fort Carson come into the NBA, I think there's some people, other organizations inside the NBA that would point to that and be like, okay, well now Fort Carson is the team in Colorado Springs for the NBA, and now Fort Carson will recruit Fort Carson players, and they'll have their exemptions per the same as every other team.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if that's what they want to do, that's perfectly fine. There's still other avenues for CMB to play in other tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, we'd still be eligible for nationals, which I think we would, because you look at Joint Base San Antonio was down there. They had a mixture of Fort Sam, Lackland,
Mm-hmm.
all that. Even though they called themselves Lackland, they were JBSA. And so I think that's an opportunity. And so maybe then at that point, our biggest focus is to focus on winning nationals. And would that be kind of disappointing because I feel like we came so close to winning the NBA this year. In the Central, we would like to defend that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also understand, that you have smaller bases out there, like a Yuma or a Miramar or some other smaller bases that don't have the pool to pull from as many players. And
Mm-hmm.
so it does put them at a disadvantage. And so I understand that, being like Colorado Springs is fortunate enough to have, 4 or 5 military installations here, plethora of military veterans to, plethora of contractors. So that I understand that in a recruiting advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But what I also know is that anybody that looks at CMP for the last 3 or 4 seasons, we've had the same core group of guys. So nobody can use the argument that, well, they went out and stacked their team this year. Well, no. Simpson, Mike, Dre, E, all, for the most part, 7, 8 of our guys had played in the NBA before, and we didn't win nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and so we just able to turn around and get a new identity this year and finally break through, so when you look at it, I think if you have one team in Colorado Springs or one team around San Antonio, you're kind of doing a disservice when your mission statement is to allow an outlet for military service members, DoD employees, veterans, and this and that. So do I understand the recruiting side of it, the competitive advantage? Yes, but like I truly believe the reason I still do this, I was in the Marine Corps. I'm a veteran. I don't have to. I tell people this is a hobby for me, but really it's so that I can give back to military members that are in the area. I have some guys that work for me now after they've
Mm-hmm.
gotten out the service here in this area, and so I think you do a very big disservice if you don't let multiple teams be in areas where you have that many service members. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of thousands of service members here, and you're going to allow them to pick up 22 guys. You know, and so I think that that's something that hopefully the NBA will look at. Maybe, the coaches summit will come up, and I'll get to make my argument. I'm sure somebody might have an opposing argument, and the only thing I can say is, are you looking at it from the basketball aspect point or a service standpoint?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're all looking at it from a service member standpoint, then come one, come all. It should be our answer, not you have a competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the things I know, of course, because that was a question. I mean, I know that was a question in which yesterday they basically spoke about opening the doors open for anyone that wants to, saying that wants to be a part of the NBA. So currently, I'm not sure. It's since talking about they just want to hoop. Uh, the currently I think the aspect is just up it's up to the individuals the installations to come forward. So I would so it would even still seem or sounds like that if CMB wanted to still be an organization they could be, but now it would just be a dividing of the pool of players because now people have to determine, do I want to work, do I want to stay in CMB, which is usually loyalties lie where they lay, and
Mhm.
they do that, or do they go into, like I said, Peterson? Do they go over to Carson and whatever the case may be? Which, in my
Well,
opinion, competition breeds competition, which is what you want.
right, and I think the answer is, if Peterson had a team, Carson had a team, then there wouldn't really be a need for CMB because the guys stationed on Peterson or the Academy or Shriver, they could all fall under Peterson, and the guys, that are on Carson would be on Carson. But the reality of it is that you can say, okay, players could just start a team on that base, right?
Okay,
But now, what if they don't have MWR funding? I mean, I know unless something
I get
drastic
what
has
you. I
changed,
think I get what you're
unless
saying. Yeah.
something that drastic has changed, I didn't make a lot of money in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all making a lot of money in the military, let me know because I think I might still be able to get back in. But if say 12 guys on Peterson say, hey, we want to play in the NBA, we're going to start a team, we're going to be in there, we're all on Peterson. The NBA will allow them.
Mm-hmm.
But now the funding for that is a little different, right? Like, because if the MBWR and the athletic director doesn't support it, then
Yeah, I
where do
know
they
they don't
get
support
funding?
them. Yeah.
And then how do you can't, then you could be like, if you're playing in an MDO event, there's opportunity for orders. There's, all this other stuff. There's, some of the teams had their lodging covered, had, government transportation, had a do. So what I do with CNB is I sponsor this team,
Mm-hmm.
as well as coach it. And so that allows, even though we have no MWR support and we have no installation support, that allows us to be a team. Even if, you're on Peterson, you necessarily can't even reserve gym time just to say, oh, us 12 guys are coming in here for practice, but now if you're considered the base team, you can. So I think there's a lot of things that people would have to work out, and I'm all for, Peterson having a team, for Carson having a team, the club team at the academy, all of them being in the NBA. And like I've told all those programs is what the NBA affords you is a schedule. It
Mm-hmm.
allows you to have 12 to 16 games that are on a schedule, that are scheduled out, that you're traveling. Because like Peterson had a team, but realistically, once their tournaments were over, it's like, what are we practicing for? What are we getting ready for?
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling me you're getting ready for a 16 round robin tournament. Like, that's not going to keep guys coming to practice.
Correct.
But now if I'm telling guys I'm getting ready to get you down to nationals, but we got to qualify. The only way to qualify is being in the gym, getting ready, and going on the road and winning games. And so, but when you tell guys that are service members that are E3s, E4s, E5s, maybe some E6s, like, okay, we're going to travel down here, but now you got to pay. We got to pay for lodging. We got to carpool, pay for fuel, all this. It gets a little harder. And I think with CMB, that's the stuff that I helped to cover this year to make it easier. So all they had to do was worry about their military stuff, their families, and then playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And if that opportunity isn't available through Peterson and Carson because of whatever powers may be, then I think that CMB should still be allowed to exist. And my only thing is we won't go outside Colorado Springs, but I don't think you want to. I think not allowing this many service members to participate in the NBA would be a huge disservice.
Okay, and I get you. I exactly get where you're coming from for definitely. So going to a lighter part of it, which that's all business. Like you said, at the coaches summit, you'll be able to voice your opinion and see what comes out from there, and then continually, ideally recruit, put people on game. Maybe y'all have more of a pool this year for people to beat up on. Maybe not. But going to the lighter side of things. So the conversation came up yesterday. In your opinion, who is the hooping coach in the NBA or military basketball? Who is the hooping coach in state? I know Coach Swain put up there. He gonna put you in the blender. Uh, who's the hooping coach? I've seen Parker yesterday. I've seen Ty. I've seen your name come up. Who Wayne's? Who is the who's the hooping coach in your opinion?
I mean, obviously, I think people are forgetting about Willie Nathan out there in Miramar as well.
Okay.
I mean, he's, played all USA, all Marine. I mean, he a bucket, Um, Coach Shaw, you still just don't cut it, man. I'm sorry, man. Sorry. Uh, I think, I actually never seen Coach Ty play, which is crazy because we're here all the time.
uh-huh.
So I'm all for hitting some open gyms with him, seeing what he can do. I think that
Hmm.
I've also never I've seen Coach Wayne beat up on Coach Uriah in a video. Again, like
As you
I
know,
haven't.
6-0.
Coach Parker, I think he was. Some people said that he's played with Campbell. I've never actually seen a lot of these guys play.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. I like
Coach
I
Bartley stood out there. Ryan Salamagne Bartley.
Oh,
You know
so
what
I
I'm saying?
seen him play, at All Army back when in the day
Coach
when I was
Mitchell.
in. So Coach, I mean, Mitch is tough. You know what I'm saying? Um, so he's tough. Um, again, a lot of these guys, I think what I've learned too is, and I think a lot of these guys are older than me. Is
Hmm.
like we in our minds we think we still got it and we a lot better than what we are, you know what I'm saying? Now one on one though, depending on what we're doing, some of you smaller coaches don't, I'm gonna back you down the whole time. I don't care. But I think people forget, maybe besides Coach Nate and Mitch, that I'm really a shooting guard, so
Uh-huh.
some of these little guards, I'm just gonna bully you down low because I done put on a little size now, and then you other old fellas, like, you better be able to move your feet because I can still get where I want on the floor.
Oh,
You
you can get
know,
to your spot. No,
I can
no
get
problem.
look, I can get wherever I want on the floor still, and my jumper's still there. So, I could have suited up in the finals. I was joking with Coach Paris, was like, damn, I should have put myself in that last game just to throw off your scouting report, man. And so that's the thing is like I could have went down to there. I still could have scored 20, 30 a game if I wanted. Now I probably only would have gave them about 2 or 3 games,
Hmm.
like the body doesn't hold up the same anymore. But I think the coaches, it's good. I get out there and play with my team. I hope they all do the same. Um, what is his name? But if I sweat and got some pink lotion on the, I mean, he might be right. I don't know. I ain't seen it. The only video I seen, I saw him put Akeem Echols in a blender too. He's right about that. But look, I also have fried Akeem Echols. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, maybe he was coming off a knee injury. Maybe not. I don't know. I just know
Uh-huh.
when he was playing with CMB and I was playing with
Instate,
CMB.
instate. He got on the court. He was in between the lines.
Yeah, when he was playing and I was playing, I went at him. There ain't nobody I've ever got on the court and not went at. And I think, people don't expect me to do what I can do. Um, but there's some really good coaches. I think that honestly, if you put an all coaches team together, there might be some teams that get beat by that all coaches team.
Mm.
Based on what I thought. And actually, that's probably a fact. Um,
Coach Wayne, you want to say anything? I'm like, where Akeem at, man? That coach said he ain't saying he cooked you. He said he fried you.
I
He
fried
put you
him. Look,
put you in the deep fat fryer.
look.
And look
Like
at Coach Paul's second emotion. Akeem, where are you at, fam? What's
look,
good?
look. I hope Akeem at work, man. You keep focusing on that career, man. You know. Uh, but I think there's a lot of good coaches that can still hoop, and I think
Uh-huh.
it's great to see guys that played that are now coaching. I think it gives a different perspective. We
Coach Paul said that team, all coaches team, will win NBT and the NBA Finals.
I mean, we may have. I don't know, but we got to get through pool play and all that stuff first with our
That's the
bodies
difference.
intact. That's the
It's
saying,
like
you know. There ain't no young guys to throw out there. So,
so
you know,
what you do is y'all create a like the U.S. You create a coach select team, and then you
yeah,
create the senior team, and that's
right.
what you're seeing out there.
You know, so I mean, I think it's good for military basketball. I mean, that's why I like it. You know, first when I was playing the last 2 seasons, it allowed me to get out there, see a lot of guys that I hadn't seen since I'd been in the military.
Hmm.
Still get out there and play at a high level, and I think that's really what it's more about. You know, obviously nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to lose or get blown out, but I think being able to travel with your team and do all that is, speaks for itself. And
Uh-huh.
so I think that's why a lot of coaches that were players still stick around the game is because like, nah, all these coaches, man, we talk it, but can't none of us do what we did in our 20s and earlier, years. Like we just can't. And so to see some of the young guys and pass on the mentorship and some of the stuff that we've learned over the years, especially just in military basketball, I think is great. And hopefully, I do get to have some of these one-on-ones real quick, and we'll see what happens.
You know what? And I sit up here thinking that I feel bad for Coach Uriah. I wish he was around so he could defend himself. And we keep on hearing everyone keep on talking about the video as that of course that's receipts. Coach Uriah
Yeah.
Wayne said he 6-0'd you. Coach Parker said it was too late. Wayne was hot, so it was like he was basically on one. Coach Uriah, as Coach Walcott would say, Coach Wayne would say, come before the congregation to explain what's going on. Right now, of course, Wayne claims that fame, and he seems to be the unstoppable one. Like, who is going to stop Coach Wayne?
I mean, he played two coaches. Relax now. Hold up. Hold
Coach
on. He
Hack is still
relax. You know what I'm saying?
in the comments
Relax.
now. You
Hey,
say he
Dave, I
played two
saw.
coaches.
He played two coaches, and I mean, come on, Coach Uriah, buck 40, 5'5". Like, relax. Like, you ain't. Hold up now. Like, everybody going 6-0 coach. I mean, I'm a 6-0 Coach Uriah. I'm sorry. You know, it's just not happening. You,
Oh my
Coach
goodness.
Wayne. You got that right now, I guess. I mean, you beat some people, but
Oh, he said he
you know.
fried. He said he fried King too. So he's like,
I mean, Akeem, he just has his off days. Sometimes he ain't got it some days. So I think that's what I ain't. You know what I'm saying? I ain't ducking nobody. So y'all, it don't matter.
Perp said he want parts too. Oh
Look, and
my
I
goodness.
and Simp, I mean, Simp, congratulations, player of the year in the conference tournament, but that's only because I didn't suit up this year. You know what I'm saying? Like I would be wearing him out too.
See, there he goes. Coach said it. And Coach let him know he ain't ducking nobody. He want all the
Nah.
smoke. He
No,
ain't
I
ducking
get out
nobody.
there with them. I get out there with them at practice, and I got records, of everybody I done fried on my team too, so they know.
Perp, I'm sending you right. I'll get you too. Scouting report, see that's the disadvantage y'all don't realize. Like the coaches have been already scouting these people, so you already know what it is. So you know what I'm saying. It seems like the players don't have a leg to stand on. Coaches are got scouting reports. They know what they can do to shut you down. So I mean, it seems like the coaches have the upper hand if it comes down to a coach versus players, and then it's a little bit different with coaches versus coaches. With 7-0 in games you played. Report to the chat. Paul's up in there. You can send me either way. I won't phase me. So it's gonna say, of course, it's all good and fun and everything. As we know, like you said, CMB will be in the building for Orlando. What should be happening is Midi crazy. So what's supposed to happen is later on, be sure to keep a watch out even if I have to go on and do a actual video. PSA is, you know what I'm saying, in connection with the council from the AAU men's and women's battle of the crest. Uh, the expectation is do a release of the seeding, so you know who's got the seeding, what they go on and break down for the Battle of the Crest tournament. Most likely tomorrow. I'm just waiting to get the information so that way I can set the stream and we can know, how we do when we get to announce and have our announce show. So we'll see what's going on with the Battle of the Crest, where you can see how it's going down, what team is potentially going to be, what the I don't know if we're going to have what the teams will be, matches will be, but we will have what the season will be. Just waiting to get the information from the committee. Alex chooses his pool as a okay.
From who? Wayne? Man, come on, man. Ain't nobody ducking nothing.
He said you get to choose your as a conference champion, you'll get to choose your pool. Wouldn't that be crazy if a team got an opportunity to choose their pool and gets first opportunity to say you won't? If given the opportunity to choose your pool, not saying this will be your strategy, are you taking the easy route or the hardest route?
So honestly, what I learned in pool play, this is what
Mhm.
I've learned, right? Is like if I was choosing my pool, right, I put myself in there in the hardest pool because then usually that hardest pool, two of those teams end up playing each other in the championship again. Now, if you go and now you have an easy pool and then you end up playing like say Wayne's team, right? Like we're not in a pool, we're gonna run into them sooner. I'd rather go ahead get a great game out the way early, wake your guys up, get us flowing. Send them out with an early L real quick, and then potentially if they battle back, we'll see them in the championship. We don't. What I can say is CMB, we don't run from nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like
I got you, coach. I cease and desist.
Look.
I cease and desist.
Look, we don't run from nobody, man. Like bring your army team over there and see what happens.
So this is a question. Okay, I got you, Coach Wade. Let me redirect. So I've been watching Court TV all day. You know what I'm saying? Court TV, I've been on my so let me redirect. So let's say this, you just said we all know for the most part, Columbia, South Carolina military basketball, who are they coming with? If you had to be in that situation, would y'all legitimately, without capping, would y'all be ready for a team full of top tier military players? As we look at Colton, Traps, all that, is CMB ready for that?
Yeah, we ready for that. I definitely think we're ready for that. And if we not, we're gonna find out real quick, right? Like, and again, everything we do as a CMB is to gauge where we at, right? We not, Fort Bragg was a big game for us at Nationals. Pendleton was a big game for us at the finals, and Herbert was a big game, having won their conference, and they were tough. And I think, I watched, I seen Colton play, phenomenal player, right? And I think if you're going to, again, like we talked about dynasty teams, like you have to play those teams.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't be like I'm a dynasty team, but I never played Wayne's team. We never beat Wayne's team. Like right now, Wayne's team, no matter where they're from, is a dynasty team in military basketball. They won the NBA finals. They've won how many tournaments? They're a team that if you're going to play them, you got to come ready to play. And again, like you're saying, anybody can get beat. Like,
correct.
But you got to be ready to play. And when you go to play those guys, your team can either fold up or they're going to show up. And so I think with CMB, we've shown up, all season. We ain't get blown out, never, not one game. You look, the biggest we were down was against JBLE, and we battled all the way back and had a chance to take the lead under a minute. That Nationals game. So it's like we're not gonna fold. That's what I know. And I know that if we play our brand of basketball, it'll be a good game, and it could be a coin flip. But I think we can win that.
Of course, he's going to get the opportunity. He said, Coach Mitchell, you better be taking this ALC. He's still ass though. Oh my goodness, Coach Wade is one who did not pull his punches on what he said. But of course, like I said, anyone can be beat. And it was just a question, subjective, of course. One way to find out is for the action to happen, and which you never know, in which case it would be, as we continue talking about Battle of the Crest going down July 7th through the 9th. Military basketball again on a front and center stage. Hell, even in Colorado, what's going on right now? Band-Aid softball, another military tournament, different sport, but same type of military. The military athlete armed forces athlete, as we call them. A lot going on basically when it comes to the military athletes. But in this case, when it comes to the round ball, military basketball on that hardwood, is going to be going down July 7th through the 9th in Orlando, Florida. So the stage is being set. Uh, Basically, be there if you can. So going back, I'm not sure because I didn't get a chance to ask yesterday. If you have any insight, the NBA Military Basketball Association will be having an All Star weekend in September. I think as well as with the coaches summit, I think is going on at the same time. Currently, is there any expectation for hold up before I get into that? What Wayne say it's actually harder. Talent can be beat, but talent don't play hard. CMB, Fort Moore, Luke Campbell, just to name a few. Roger that, play hard, and they got talent. So of course, idea talent. So that's a great segue in which I was just about to ask Coach Walcott is, is there the talent from CMB? Is there expectation for any of your players to be given a nod for the All Star game?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't see how not, man. I really feel like, I mean, I know they did the voting and it's a whole organization, but I really feel like our top 7 players could be there. I mean, any of them, they all showed up. Top 8 guys, we had a really good team. We have a lot of talent. We should have a few guys represented there, and I don't know what guys' availability will be. I think that's another thing is, and another thing I heard, we voted on All Stars, but for guys to travel and then, and then you just start getting more back into the expenses side of it, and
Mm-hmm.
so if any of my guys are selected and they want to, travel down there, I should be there for the coaches summit. So we'll make it happen. But I definitely think we have a few guys that are deserving of that, and I think it would be a big snub if we don't have a few guys there.
Mm. And is it a possibility maybe you a coach of one of the two teams?
Um, I mean, potentially, I'm not sure how they're doing it. I don't know if they're just gonna take the 2 coaches from the finals. I don't know if, you have some really good coaches in the NBA. Again, like I am a first year coach, maybe it'd be ideal for them to do like a head coach and assistant coach and bring in, a head coach that,
To get more
maybe
coaching.
Paris and and then maybe have a coach that's been on the sidelines for, 10 years, just to get different perspectives. And that also gives, your younger coaches, or if it's Paris, bring in a first year coach to coach alongside him. And if it's me, bring in an older coach, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
different things I think they can try. But I mean, I'm open to coaching in it. I think that, you know, I know a lot of the players. I think a lot of the players might, you know, really enjoy playing under my coaching style, the way we're going to play,
Mm-hmm.
if that happens.
So it being that, would you keep the same coaching style in that type of game, or do you change a little because you don't want someone to kind of like get a peek under the hood of what it is that you do for your organization, or
Uh,
do you coach around or do you change it to for the players in which you have?
yeah, I mean, I think the All Star game is about what players end up on your roster. And then, I mean, I think an all star game is, for the guys to get out there, have fun, show their talents. So it wouldn't be, we wouldn't have sets. We definitely wouldn't be slowing it down.
Okay.
I don't think most of the military athletes out here, they're not trying to slow it down, right? We're trying to get up and down. We're trying to run, trying to play tough defense. Um, and I think that's really, kind of how I would look at it. It's like, look, we're gonna play basic fundamental basketball. We'll run some screen and rolls. We pick away, some cuts. I don't. I think there would be very little defense probably played in the first place with these guys. I think they want to see guys get up. I think they want to see some dunks. They want to see some 40-foot shots. I don't think like anybody going there. I think it's just an honor for them to be there, and I don't think they're gonna. It's gonna be. Uh, Might be competitive for a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be that serious of a game.
Mm, okay. Last couple of questions before we get up out of here. Going back into the round ball, the professional aspect of it. Uh, do you think it was a good idea from that well, what's your standpoint in reference to not say I could say standpoint. What do you think about the whole situation with John Morant, especially last night? Adam Silver announcing that they're going to wait till after the NBA finals to announce and give the findings and what potentially they're going to do. Do you think it's going to be a full season or just some games, or we're going to see him sometime in 2025?
I think it's just gonna be some games. Like I seen people like, why are they punishing him? He didn't do anything illegal, this, that, and the third. Like, and it may not, you didn't break a law, but when you're part of an organization and the organization has standards and rules that
Mm-hmm.
you abide by, especially when you're being paid that much money, you have to abide by them, and
Mm-hmm.
you can't make the kind of money that he makes in the NBA, and the NBA has a code of conduct. They have all this stuff, and you already knew that what you did the first time was against that code of conduct. And
Mm-hmm.
so to do it a second time is crazy. But I mean, at the same time, what is Ja, 23, 24 years
23.
old?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know a lot of 23-year-olds that go out and this weekend going to be blackout drunk and be like, I'm never going to do that again. And then they out
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the next night. So it's like,
Doing the same thing.
at 23, they're still learning life and they're still, I don't think he should be penalized a full season. I
Mm-hmm.
think he should be penalized just because, he did come on, did whole interviews about how he knew what he did was wrong, this, that, and the third. And so I think that was kind of like, he was just kind of, you know, lip talk right there when he was telling people that, right? He was like, I'm going to tell them what they want to hear because I want to get back out with my team playing. And so now hopefully, you make it a little more severe this time, but I don't think he wants a full season.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if a third time comes and it's like, okay, and I also don't think they're going to suspend him a full season because, I mean, he's a draw for the NBA. Like, I mean, that's money you're going to lose, and so the NBA is still a business as well. And I think he deserves some games, but I don't think he deserves to sit out a full season. There's Akeem.
Akeem is in the building. Akeem, has been a lot of talk, man. We heard you've been getting fried, diced, every possible cooking method there is out there by these coaches, or saying a couple of coaches. Akeem, what have you to say for yourself? Coach Miller fried you. That's from what we've been heard, and he didn't pull any punches. He said fried KFC. He had the KFC special recipe and everything. Akeem, what's going on, man? So of course, in doing like you said, a key thing, like you said, the policies, of course, in which people don't realize these policies, things are put in place, as a lot of players have discussed and talked about. And so now Ja is going to be more front and center. I've seen a lot of talk in reference to the analysis on the NBA and ESPN. They stated and said that they're going to. The expectation is like why they're waiting so long to basically put it out there is because they're probably going to suspend them the whole year, and they don't want to take away the track from the playoffs. Akeem, can nobody on Facebook beat me 101 and ask Simp and Dre about me? Simp, it's funny how everyone gets pulled in. Simp, what I'm saying? The receipts are being put out there. Simp, what you got to say? Akeem said there's no
I
one
just
on
want I
Facebook.
just want to point out, you see, he didn't drop my name in there though
He
to
didn't
ask
jump your
about
name.
it, right?
I was gonna say
No,
nothing back, but
absolutely. Look, he
but
know.
what's saying? God love the truth, and I didn't hear.
Mm-hmm.
We said we were direct when you said we
You
heard
act directly
that.
about me, and he
Really,
deflected to Simp and Dre. Come on, man.
King,
Man,
what's going on, man?
see,
Get them off you, fam. Yeah, but of course, like you said, that will be like Ja. We'll see how it comes out, and it's unfortunate, but I think sometimes you not necessarily saying you got to send a message, but it is a situation where, like you said, Ja is somewhat a face of the NBA, and now they have to make a example seemingly after that fact, and there's going to be some other people that's going to have to probably step up in that absence of Ja in reference, or someone's going to fill the void as he's going to be gone during that time frame. Of course, going in again, another question: Victor Wembanyama, is he going to be a Spur?
oh yeah, he going to San Antonio.
I
He
just
going to
don't.
San Antonio. Greg Popovich ain't getting rid of it. Is not going to let that kid go anywhere else, especially when Ginobili's already come out. I mean, Tony Park. Look at all the overseas, players from
Those
Europe
other
that they've
yeah.
already had come in. I mean, they not getting rid of that kid. Now, I mean, because the good thing that I think you've learned about the NBA is that, like, look at Bobo. Now he didn't have the hype that Victor did, but if the players come in and they don't perform on that rookie contract, another team is going to trade for him and pick him up, like Markelle Fultz.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Philly, very disappointing. Went to Orlando, and he's a solid player.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I I think that you're going to see they're going to keep him, and I think San Antonio's very good at developing players. When you look at, when they had Lonnie Walker, they had what's the kid, Derek White from the Celtics right now. They had uh, Kawhi started there and developed there. They're very good at developing players,
Hmm.
and so I and I don't think if you're talking about a kid that's LeBron himself is called an alien, like a generational
A
talent
generational
potentially.
talent. Hmm.
You are out of your mind if you trade him away right now before you even get him in the building. I don't see it. And I don't think Greg Popovich is that dumb either. I think he's a very smart individual, a very smart coach. I think he's can't wait to get him in there.
Coach Mitch said he's reporting Akeem's comment. And so it's true because I think the last time we had a situation to where a top talent was traded to where one team was basically on the opposite side of the spectrum. On the bad end of that is when Kobe got traded from Charlotte to LA. And
Hmm.
look what that
Right.
became. Of course, what I'm saying, we had Luca and Trey traded, Trey Young traded, but I mean, that's they're both players, good players that we're
There's
talking about.
very good players. I
Yeah,
think the stuff that I've seen him do in his highlights, you, there's no way you get rid of him. Like he went up against what potentially the number 2 pick,
Scoot. Hmm.
and yeah, and did his thing. Like, I mean, so it's hard to project. I think long term how good players are going to be, and I think it's hard of a player of his size. When you go back, you got Greg Oden, who was more post player, but guys at that size, I feel like can be very injury prone. And I think once they get him in there, it's about developing his frame and all that, and see how he can hold up under a full 82 game NBA season versus overseas. They play a lot of games, and he's playing a lot of games as a younger kid against grown men over there. But the things that I've seen him do, I mean, I just always go back. I mean, he caught his own putback off a 3 for a dunk. I mean, and then I saw a picture of him standing next to Rudy Gobert, and he
He's
makes him
taller
look
than
little,
Rudy. Yeah, he's taller than Rudy.
and he moves better than Rudy. So it's like, if you're a coach, I don't think you. I think when you can get a player of that caliber to coach, and especially if you're a good coach, you definitely think you can develop them into an even better player than what they already are. So I I I'm gonna say there's 0% chance the Spurs trade him. I'll be very shocked.
Mm. So, as you were saying, like you said, of course, the weight aspect. Do you think stuff like that? Because of course, you have another player who's actually going to be competing with him for Rookie of the Year in Chet Holmgren, same similar statures in a sense, who gets a lot of gets a lot of praise for his abilities. Of course, Wembanyama, as you said, is a talent that's seen as being so much more advanced than all the other talents that have come in the same aspect. What do you see in that aspect where both of them same stature, small, not much weight? Do you think putting on weight? We haven't seen them play in the league yet, but putting on weight is you think that going to take away from their skill sets?
No, I think they got people that'll get them to do it the right way. And obviously when they're doing it, and even look at like Kevin Durant. I mean, he really hasn't. I mean, he put on
Correct.
some weight, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
he's still and he does whatever he wants out there, and he gets to the rim, he pulls up. I think that's the biggest thing for him is like his jumper he has a jumper, and who is going to contest his jumper,
Yeah.
at 7'6" or 7'4", whatever he is. Like, who's contesting that? That was
Mm-hmm.
like I was watching Michael Porter last night. It's like he's 6'10", shooting over everybody that Miami's sending at him, and it's like he don't even see him there. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you have that type of player, it's like he's just got to have confidence coming in. And I think if he comes in and he has a hard first, going, and maybe his confidence goes a little thinking, but I don't think so. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine. I think Chet got injured on a foot injury in the off season. Like,
Mm-hmm. Playing
I
in
think that was a
the pro
fluke.
amps.
And I think that was a fluke thing. I don't think you're going to see him playing in any programs this summer if he
Mm-hmm.
goes to the Spurs. That's
Mm-hmm.
for sure. But I think that he will be. I think he'll be all right. I don't think that if he was going to be injury prone, I think maybe you would have already heard about some injuries from him over there, especially as a young man playing against grown men over there. So
which is always do. So, in saying that, do you think that is a better development factor for the players coming from overseas as opposed to the ones that play in the states?
I think that a lot of them that come from overseas are more, lately at least, have been more NBA ready. Right now, I think when players started coming from overseas at first, they weren't because the speed of the game, and I think access to film and tournaments and games where they play against it, unless it was the Olympic level. Now you see in the summer league, the NBA brings teams from Europe overseas to play. We're playing against all these teams more often. A lot of these players are playing with their national teams more often, so they've played against. You would have never seen Scoot play against Victor in
Mm-hmm.
a regular season just game exhibition thing,
Mm-hmm.
back 5, 10 years ago. And now you see that more frequently. So I think guys are more prepared. And I think because they start playing at a younger age, they're more developed. And like, look when Luca came in, he went off. And so I think you see that more often now.
What's good, Diggs? We appreciate you joining the formation this morning. What's going on, Fat? How you doing, brother? I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I retract my statement. We put that back in that box. So when you in saying that, if you was to go and they was to bring back the Worlds versus the NBA, do you think Worlds will have a better chance of winning with this later push of players? Jamal Murray, Jokic, Luca, um, soon will be Wimby. All these players. Do you think the Worlds has a better opportunity to beat a NBA team if they bring that back?
I mean, I think they have a better opportunity. I think the problem is when they do these games, they're exhibitions. So players
Okay.
don't play hard, right?
Okay.
Like they don't play defense the same. They don't like now. I think if like you had a world team that was in the NBA for a full season, like
Hmm.
competing for a championship, and like I think they do very well, and I think they would be very good. But when you just have a one-off game, the USA team don't even get all of its best players in there. I
Hmm.
think the USA just has such an abundance of talent that I think they would still win. Um, but I think the world players with Giannis and Jokic and all them, Doncic and all them.
That's a
The
hell of
funny
a
part is,
squad.
it is, but when you look at a lot of these guys, they're all like the superstar on their team. So
Hmm.
how do they come in? And I think teams when you don't have role players are not better teams. I think you look at the Kyrie and Doncic thing, like it was very KD going to the Suns. I think the Nuggets kind of showed that they're they have their complement of role players, very good players around Murray and Jokic, and it
Hmm.
still works. You know, Booker, KD, Chris Paul, and people say, "Oh, Chris Paul got hurt, so maybe that would have been a big difference." But
Would
I
that
just
have been a
think,
difference?
you know, I don't think so, but I mean, people could argue it. So I think when you start trying to put all these superstars on one team, like there's still only one ball. It always goes back to there's only one ball. You're only gonna get
Correct.
so many shots a game, and Booker and KD are both like prolific scorers. But if I get 30, 40 from each of them, you saw that they can still lose. And
Hmm.
so because their other players just they're not involved in the flow of the game. And so I think the brand of basketball is, wins games when the ball's flying around. Guys are all involved. I'm thinking that the Nuggets had 6 guys in double digits scoring last night.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think that's just a better formula to win games. And so I don't know if you put all these guys that are used to having the ball, being very ball dominant on the same team, I don't know how well they would play. They'd probably need some time to mesh. And so one game, I don't think is going to do it.
And when you look at this, right, as we're talking about the Nationals, do you think the NBA got it wrong with Joel Embiid as the MVP this year, or was it should have had been Jokic?
I mean, obviously, I'm a Denver fan, man, so I would
Hmm.
have think he could have won it. But I mean, I think if you give somebody that, I think they never gave LeBron 3 MVPs in a row. Kobe won one. Like when you look at it, stuff like that, like I don't know if he should have won 3 in a row, but I mean, he had a great season. And
Uh
when
huh.
you look at what he's doing in the postseason, I think the best thing would have been if the Sixers could have handled their business and we could have seen the Sixers and Nuggets in the finals.
Mm.
Um, but they didn't, and I think that also goes to speak to why he probably should have been the MVP, right? Like
Hmm.
he took his team to a finals now this year, in this same year, you know, and you can say, well, the last 2 seasons, you know, they bailed out early, and so I'm sure people think about that stuff as like, again, winning. When you win, it brings more accolades, rewards, you know, championships. You get a little higher praise, you know, and so
Hmm.
for him to have possibly potentially won 3 NBA MVPs and never won a championship, you know, damn near got swept in the Western Conference Finals in the bubble, you know. And you can say Murray got hurt and tore his Achilles. That's when he really should
Yeah,
have, you
that's
know,
yeah.
elevated
Because
and
in my
and
opinion, he picked up
so
right. He picked up right from where he did when he left the game. So
right,
it was just a
yep,
matter of he came back just enough time to get his legs and underneath him and everything like that, and now he's showing like potentially maybe he could have avoided the Lakers. I mean, even though he went left late in the game and they got genuine swept during the bubble, but definitely showing the difference. Currently, Denver 9-0
yeah,
at home during the playoffs. Like it's like y'all got a six player on the court in Denver when it comes to that. Definitely. So
yeah.
Alex, I greatly appreciate you this morning, tapping in this morning. A lot of insightful. Always a great session when you get to come through. In which, of course, like you said, you got more. Y'all know y'all not done. It's more to come. Hopefully, I maybe get a chance to see you in Orlando. If not, maybe get a chance to see you up in Oklahoma. As like I said before, I'm in the process of making moves myself. But greatly appreciate you coming on this afternoon, man. I mean, this morning, of course, as we get ready to get up out of here. Any last words before we go, man?
No, man, I appreciate you having me. Again, congratulations to, you know, JBLE on their winning nationals, Luke, you know, win the NBA finals. And, you know, we're looking forward to seeing everybody again and appreciate it. You guys, you know, hope we all had a good season and hopefully the guys that, shout out to, you know, hopefully the guys that got injured, hope you guys are doing well. You know, luckily that was kind of the biggest thing. I didn't really see a ton of injuries at the NBA finals. So
Hmm.
that was a blessing. But for the guys that did get injured, you know, speedy recovery, and we look forward to seeing everybody back out there next time.
Roger that. Of course, like I said, be sure to be on the lookout so y'all know when it's going down. Of course, we're gonna have the reveal in reference to the Battle of the Crest, most likely tomorrow. But y'all will see that as soon as I get the information. Y'all have that information. It's a Friday, just after the Memorial Day weekend. It's a Friday. So go out, enjoy yourselves, be safe, and be back to tap in with us this week. Y'all know to find us every Monday through Friday for the most part in the aspect 09 1100 hours. That between that time frame, we're here falling in, and we enjoy having y'all. Until tomorrow, like I said, be on the lookout. See you then. It's your boy Trey. I'm out of here. Alex, Coach Alex. We up out of here. Peace.